A comment that I received on one of my videos recently was from someone who disagreed with me quite a bit, but they were actually very gracious in how they responded to one of my videos. But in the midst of their comment, they made a statement that really stuck out to me and I thought would be good to address in a video. And here's what they said. I find it fascinating that the Holy Spirit is consistently referred to in the Old Testament Hebrew using feminine pronouns. So that's what we're going to look at in this video. Is the Holy Spirit depicted as feminine in the Old Testament? Now, the first thing I have to point out about this statement is that actually there seems to be some misunderstanding here on the part of the commenter. They're saying that the Old Testament Hebrew uses feminine pronouns for the Holy Spirit. In reality, from what I have read, there are no pronouns referring to the Spirit as feminine, as in she or her in reference to the Spirit. But if we look at what the Old Testament word is for spirit itself, the actual word for spirit, we do see that it is a feminine noun. And I think that's what the commenter is actually referring to. So you can see here how the KJV translates this word. And what you'll notice, and I think this is a really important point, that the word for spirit actually doesn't only mean spirit, it can mean a variety of things. And so you see it's translated 232 times as spirit or spirit, but it's also translated 92 times as wind, 27 times as breath, 6 times as side, 5 times as mind, and so on. So it can mean various things, and you see that here in the outline of biblical usage from blueletterbible.org, where the first meaning here actually starts with wind, and then it says breath, mind, spirit. So I wanted to point this out first of all because I think it's really a misunderstanding if you look at the word for spirit and you say, well, that's a feminine word, so that somehow implies that God, the Holy Spirit, is feminine, when in reality the word Ruach in Hebrew can refer to a variety of things. So for example here, wind. And in Exodus 14 we see that used here where Moses stretches out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night. So if you look at the word wind here, Ruach, that's the same word for spirit. So if you're thinking of wind, do you think of wind as somehow being feminine? No, not really. What you're really seeing here is just that Hebrew has gendered language for certain words. I was thinking about how in Spanish you have a word like la casa, which I think would be a feminine word for house. But that doesn't mean that to Spanish people houses are all girls. It's just the way that gendered language works in certain languages. Another thing to think about here is that a person can have a spirit within them. So a man can have a spirit, a ruach. But if a man has a spirit, that doesn't mean that the spirit in him is feminine, just because the word in Hebrew is feminine. So in looking at the question as to whether the Holy Spirit could be regarded as feminine based on the Old Testament use of the word, the first point here is that I think that's reading too much into it, because the word can mean a variety of things, and we don't take all of those things to mean that they are somehow feminine. Wind is not feminine, mind is not feminine, and so on and so forth. Another thing that is really important in this discussion is actually to compare the Hebrew word with the Greek word for spirit, and it's interesting that there's discontinuity there. In the Old Testament, while the word uses gendered language that is feminine, in the New Testament, the Greek word happens to be neuter. There's a really good blog post that Bill Mounce wrote. Bill Mounce, by the way, is someone who's on the committee for the NIV Bible translation and also was the New Testament chair for the ESV translation. He says that he heard a fascinating piece of bad exegesis the other day. The Holy Spirit is a she. The basis of this claim was that the Hebrew word for spirit is feminine. The short answer is that if this is true, then the spirit is also an it, since the Greek word for spirit, pneuma, is neuter. And then he goes on to talk about gendered language, grammatical gender, which is what I was talking about earlier. So this is a really good blog post to read. I think it has a lot of really helpful information in a short amount of space. And really his conclusion is at the end here. The Bible teaches that all three members of the Godhead are persons, and that while God is more than the human categories of masculine and feminine, he is personal. The Holy Spirit is not a she or an it. He is a person. Hebrew and Greek follow grammatical gender. So again, a really important point here is to realize that the Holy Spirit in the Old Testament does use a word that has the grammatical gender of feminine, but that is not the same in the New Testament. So there's not really a consistency here that would point us and merit us saying that the Holy Spirit in any way could be regarded as feminine. And one other thing that I want to point out here is that you'll never see the use of she with spirit. There really are not feminine pronouns in direct correlation with the word spirit in the Bible. Whereas you will actually see the use of the word he with spirit. And I want to show you that from John 16:13. In John 16:13, you see here in the interlinear, howbeit when he, the Spirit of truth. So you can see here that the masculine pronoun in the New Testament is linked with spirit. So if anything, the way the Bible writers talk about the Spirit is in a masculine sense. Again, I would reiterate what Bill Mounce said in his blog post, that God, in a sense, is really beyond gender. And so we have to be careful not to read too much into grammatical gender that is in the Hebrew.
Yeah, don't read too much into it.
Furthermore, I would add that we should really try to use the language that God uses for himself. See what I did there? I used himself because in the Bible, when you read the way that the languages are written, God is referred to in the masculine. And so we even have in the New Testament God referred to as Father, and then there is the Son. So Father, Son, Holy Spirit, these really are masculine terms that are being used in relation to God. That is how God has chosen to reveal himself. It is my position that we should try to use the language that God uses for himself, and again, not to read too much into anything based on grammatical gender in the original languages. So the conclusion here obviously is that if you're asking the question, is the Holy Spirit feminine based on the Old Testament word, the basic simple answer is no. If you have any response to this, questions or comments, I'd love to see that in the comment section below. But thank you so much for taking a look at this topic with me from A Frisch Perspective.